Hello, I'm Nigel Lythgoe, and this is The Enemy Within, the show where one of our contestants has been given all of today's answers. If they keep their identity hidden, they'll steal all of today's money. Let's meet our contestants. Andrew Jones from the West Midlands. Julie Patterson from Warrington. Joe Wilkins from the Wirral. Kirsty Green from Hertfordshire.
Hello.
And Neil Rudd from Hull. One of you is a cheat. You're the enemy within a group of honest contestants. You know if you're not named by the end of today, you will steal everybody else's money. But which one of you is the enemy? Let's meet our first enemy suspect. Andrew Jones, you're an accountant. Let's see what you said when we said, what are your views on cheating?
I think cheating is fine, provided, you know, it's only a little cheat, maybe a little lie here and there, and something you can get away with, something that maybe doesn't get you or anyone else into too much trouble. And obviously, provided it's not illegal, then everything should be fine.
Well, it's not illegal to cheat today, so you should be fine with that.
Okay.
Andrew Jones, are you the enemy?
No, Nigel, I'm not.
Then I'll ask you 3 questions. Each one is worth £25. If you don't know the answer or answer incorrectly, I'll throw it open for a bonus. Now, we don't know what the enemy's strategy is going to be today. We know they've seen the answers, but will they use the answers or hide in the shadows and not give them? These are clues you're going to have to pick up in round 1. Andrew, your 3 questions. In which year was the first episode of Coronation Street broadcast?
1965.
Throwing it open. Neil.
1960.
Correct. Julie, I'm surprised you didn't know that. You're a Coronation Street fan.
Yes.
Tahini is a sweet paste prepared from which seeds?
I don't know.
Throwing it open. Sesame seeds. For which film of 1995 did Mel Gibson win an Oscar for Best Director? Throwing it open, Joe.
Braveheart.
Correct. Not very well answered there, Andrew.
Well, there's some questions you do know, some you don't.
But your favourite subject is entertainment, Andrew.
Not all areas of entertainment, just, you know, just some.
Just some?
Yeah.
So not television and not movies. Let's move on to our second enemy suspect. Julie Patterson's a fashion shop proprietor. We asked her, do you think cheats are born or are they made?
I believe there's a cheat in all of us. I believe that some people are very natural at cheating. I consider myself to be more of somebody who manoeuvres the facts, really just to gain an advantage over other people.
Julie, someone who manoeuvres the facts. Call me old-fashioned, Julie. That's a cheat. Julie Patterson, are you the enemy?
No, Nigel, I am not.
Your 3 questions, each one is worth £25. Which guitarist is nicknamed Slowhand?
Eric Clapton.
Correct. Which is the most common surname in both the UK and the USA?
Brown.
Throwing it open. Neil.
Smith.
Correct. Who chaired A Question of Sport before Sue Barker? Throwing it open, Joe.
David Coleman.
He did indeed. Do you watch a lot of television?
I thought I did.
Let's move on to our third enemy suspect, Joe Wilkins, a student. We asked him, do you think cheats prosper?
Well, personally, I think that in the long run, you're only going to feel guilty if you cheat. In the short term, the benefits could outweigh it, but you're just going to live your life thinking, well, what's around the corner? So no, I don't think cheats prosper at all.
Well, let's make it quite clear, Joe. Cheats do prosper on this show if they're good. And you know that. Joe Wilkins, are you the enemy?
Certainly not.
Your 3 questions. Of what is graphology the study? Throwing it open, Andrew.
Writing.
Handwriting is correct. After parting company with him in 1997, which Spice Girl re-signed with Simon Fuller in 2002?
Baby Spice.
Baby Spice, Emma Bunton, absolutely. What was the name of the 1980s BBC Two show fronted by Eurotrash's Antoine Decaune? Throwing it open.
Network 7.
No, it was Rapido. Joe, I'm surprised you didn't know that.
I was only a kid in 1980s. So.
Let's move on to our fourth enemy suspect, Kirsty Green, a driving instructor. Let's see what she said when we asked her, have you ever cheated?
Yes, I have done. Just moved into our new house and we were having some friends over for a meal. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to cook myself. Went down to the local supermarket, bought all the ready meals, cooked them, passed them off as my own, and everyone said how fantastic it was. And up until now, they had no idea that I did cheat and I did lie.
Well, they do now, and you've been very honest with us. You've told us all that you cheat. I wonder if you'll cheat today. Kirsty Green, are you the enemy?
No, Nigel, I'm not the enemy.
It looks like butter wouldn't melt in your mouth, Kirsty.
We'll see.
Your three questions. Black Bess was the mount of which legendary highwayman?
Dick Turpin?
Correct. In the popular sitcom, Frasier Crane works for a radio station in which city?
New York?
Throwing it open. Joe.
Seattle.
Correct. What was the name of the sheep cloned from a single cell in 1997?
That was Dolly.
Correct. Let's move on to our final enemy suspect, Neil Rudd, a prison officer. Let's see what he said when we asked him, what are your thoughts on people who cheat?
I think they're bad people. People who try to cut corners, use any opportunity to get where they want to go. I think they're bad people, whether they play sport or any type of competition. They're the sort of people I resent. And I really enjoy cheats getting caught out.
You weren't caught out when you copied your friend's autographs and stole the original ones, Neil.
Well,
Neil Rudd. Are you the enemy?
no, Nigel, I'm not.
Your three questions. Born Harry Webb, which British pop star was named the world's #1 artist by Billboard magazine in 1963?
Cliff Richard.
Correct. In cricket, what English term is the equivalent of the Australian bosey?
Googly.
Correct. The works of which TV dramatist included Cold Lazarus and The Singing Detective?
Dennis Potter.
Correct. The end of that round, and I am not going to reveal your running totals at this point, only our viewers can see them at home. What I will tell you is that Neil is our current leader. Now, is that because he's clever or because he's cheating? I wonder if you've picked up any clues. Maybe you have at home. The telephone lines will be open at the end of the next round. You can call us and let us know who the enemy is. You'll need to pick up those clues as we move into round 2, a buzzer round, where each question is worth £50. Anybody can buzz in and pick up that question. One thing you must know is that the enemy need not buzz in. They can sit back and relax and let you do all of the work, and they can steal your money at the end of the show. So be vigilant as we move into round 2. In which combat sport is the area of play known as the piste? Julie?
Skiing?
No, I'm throwing it open. It's fencing. I did say combat sport, Julie. I don't know what fights you do on skis. Or was that just a clever buzz-in to put us all off the scent? Which planet shares its name with the Roman goddess of love? Neil?
Mars.
Throwing it open. Kirsty?
Venus.
Venus is correct. I think Mars was the god of war, Neil. Or maybe you already knew that. Americans call them zucchini. What do we call them? Kirsty?
Courgettes.
We do indeed. Which EastEnders character does Lucy Benjamin play? Kirsty?
Lisa.
Lisa Shaw is right. Spinach is high in which vitamin? Neil?
C.
No. Throwing it open. Joe?
B.
No, it's K. Which Hugh Lofting character could talk to the animals? Andrew?
Dr. Dolittle.
Correct. In dressmaking, concertina and box are types of what? Neil?
Stitch.
Throwing it open. Andrew?
Collar.
No, I'm surprised the ladies didn't know that it was pleats. I wonder if that tells us anything. Phil Collins replaced Peter Gabriel as lead singer in which group? Andrew.
Genesis.
Correct. The boll weevil destroys crops of which natural fibre? Kirsty?
Cotton?
Cotton is right. A guess, or did you know?
We'll have to see.
Or had you read it?
We'll see.
I wonder why you're putting an element of doubt in everybody's minds as to whether you're the enemy or not. Because if they get it wrong, you will lose your money too, Kirsty.
True. I'll take the chance.
In which part of the body would you find bones called malleus and stapes? Joe?
The ear.
Correct. Well, I'm still not going to tell you your individual scores. All I can tell you is that Kirsty has now moved into the lead. But does that mean she's the enemy? We're now at the halfway stage and you must be forming opinions. Let's find out what they are. Andrew, who do you think the enemy is and why?
At the moment, I do think it's Kirsty. Because
Really?
some of the questions she's getting just aren't obvious answers.
Julie, who do you think the enemy is?
I agree. I think it's Kirsty at this stage. She seems to be answering the strangest of questions.
Joe?
Either Neil or Kirsty, I'd say Neil.
Neil, why Neil?
He just seems so deadpan and getting all the answers right. And he's a prison officer, so he obviously can keep a straight face, you know.
Yeah, but he might be intelligent, Joe.
He
You're
probably
dismissing
is.
that, are you?
I'm not dismissing that at all.
Kirsty, you can see a couple of people have pointed at you. Who do you think the enemy is?
I think it might be Andrew,
Why?
because a few of the questions, as Julie said with me, that he answered correctly, I was quite surprised that he would know the answer.
Neil?
My suspect is Kirsty. I'd say Joe was second, but Kirsty's definitely my number one suspect at the moment.
Kirsty, 3 people have pointed at you. If you're not the enemy, then you're being brilliantly framed. However, I do think some of your answers to me might lead people to believe you're the enemy. That might be a bold decision or a stupid one. Well, how about you at home? Have you noticed anything? Have you spotted something that our contestants haven't? If you think you know who the enemy is, the lines are now open. You can call us. If you think it's Andrew, then call 0901 383 4141. If you think it's Julie, then call 0901 383 4142. If you think it's Joe, then call 0901 383 4143. If you think it's our current leader, Kirsty, then call 0901 383 4144. If you think it's Neil, then call 0901 383 4145. 5 randomly selected winners will each receive £200. The lines will remain open until the end of the final round, and calls cost 25 pence. We're now going to move on to our third round, and this is where I will ask each of you 3 questions on a specific subject. Each question is worth £75. Your problem is you haven't chosen that specific subject, so it's quite possible you won't get any of the answers right. Unless, of course, you've already read them, and then why would you want to step out there and show everybody you know things you shouldn't know? You are going to have to focus and flush out the faker in round 3. Andrew, your specific subject is Catherine Cookson. Do you like reading romantic novels, Andrew?
Not very often, no.
Which was the first novel in her Malin trilogy?
Haven't got a clue.
Throwing it open. It was The Malin Streak. What title was bestowed on Cookson in the early 90s?
Sorry, I just don't know.
Throwing it open. Julie?
Dame?
Dame is correct. In which British seaside town did she meet her husband, Tom?
Blackpool?
Throwing it open. Neil?
Whitby?
No, it was Hastings. Julie, let's move on to you. Your specific subject is superheroes. The Red Skull and Baron Blood were enemies of which superhero?
Batman?
Throwing it open. Neil?
Superman?
No, it was Captain America. What colour is the Incredible Hulk, Julie?
It's green.
He is indeed. Which of the X-Men could blast fire from his eyes?
I've no idea.
Throwing it open. Joe?
Cyclops.
Cyclops is right. Did you see the movie or did you read the comic?
Well, I watched the cartoon and then saw the movie as well. Sorry, I'm showing my age.
Let's move to you, Joe. Your specific subject is famous quotations. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Whose were those famous?
Winston Churchill.
It was indeed. Which Shakespearean character said, a horse, my kingdom for a horse"?
I don't know.
Throwing it open? Neil?
Richard the First.
No, it was Richard III. Joe, I don't understand. Your favourite subject is drama.
Yeah, and I also do English literature, so I'm doing the Shakespeare module this year as well. So
Really?
yeah.
I think you might get a hard time after this show, Joe. When asked if he thought Ringo was the best drummer in the world, who replied, he's not even the best drummer in the Beatles?
John Lennon.
Correct. Kirsty, British newspapers is your specific subject. What was the name of Eddie Shah's daily, which ran from 1986 to 1995?
Today.
Correct. For which London newspaper is Victor Lewis Smith a television critic?
Mirror.
Throwing it open, Neil.
Daily Mirror.
No, I did say it was a London newspaper. It's the Evening Standard, and the Mirror is a national newspaper, as I'm sure you're aware. The Thunderer is a name applied to which newspaper, Kirsty?
The Sun.
Throwing it open, Neil.
Times.
Times is correct. Neil, let's move to you. Frank Sinatra is your specific subject. Do you like Frank Sinatra?
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Not too
Music's
bad.
good.
What is Sinatra's middle name? Throwing it open. Kirsty?
Archie.
No, but you knew it began with an A, because it was Albert.
My uncle's a great fan of Sinatra.
Really? So you knew his middle name was A, began with an A, did you?
I had a rough idea, but
He won an Oscar for his portrayal of Angelo Maggio in which 1953 film? Throwing it open. From Here to Eternity. Sinatra's last UK #1 was a duet with his daughter. What was it called? Throwing it open. Joe.
Is it Something Stupid?
It was Something Stupid, later covered by Robbie Williams and Nicole Kidman. It's the end of that round, and for the first time I can now reveal your cash totals, and for our viewers at home, a reminder of those phone numbers to call us on. Andrew, you have £125. Julie, you have £175. Neil, you have £200. Kirsty, you have £325. And Joe, you have £450. So Joe is our current leader. But is he the enemy? Let's take a moment out here and just check up on your backgrounds in order to try and build up a profile of who the enemy might be. Andrew, when the application forms came in for this show, you filled yours in and then hid the rest from the entire office so that you would be chosen. Andrew, you've cheated.
Well, correct, yeah.
Julie, you've got a friend who's a recruitment officer.
Yes.
And she put you forward for a job. You actually made all of the qualifications up to get the job which you got. You must have been very shocked when at your wedding your brother stood up and said how well you'd been doing for somebody with no qualifications, especially as you'd invited your boss to the wedding.
Yeah.
Joe, you keep saying how young you are, yet I know that you've toured Britain and Ireland as an actor and you're now a director. I wonder if you're playing the role of enemy today. Kirsty, you're a driving instructor. You told one of your pupils to turn right at a roundabout. Now in this country, Kirsty, we don't turn right at roundabouts. Kirsty, you made a big mistake as a driving instructor. I wonder if you've made a big mistake today. Neil, we've heard how you've taken your friend's autographs, you copied them, stole his, and gave him a set of copied autographs. You also had a friend over who's a vegetarian. You didn't have any vegetable oil, did you? So you used lard. Your mate said they were the best chips he'd ever tasted.
He did.
Neil, you cheated him. I wonder if you're cheating people today. These are the type of people you're sitting next to. One of them is the enemy. You're going to have to decide who that is at the end of this, our final round. For £100, reggae singer Eddie Grant went to #2 in the 1983 UK singles charts with which song? Andrew.
Electric Avenue.
Electric Avenue, yes, for £125, according to the nursery rhyme, Wednesday's child is full of what? Neil.
Promise.
No, it's full of woe. Still for £125, which politician turned novelist went to jail for perjury? Neil.
Jeffrey Archer.
Correct. £150. In which year was the 50th anniversary of VE Day celebrated? Neil.
94.
No, it was 1995. £150 still. The Anglo-Indian dish, kedgeree, is traditionally served at which meal of the day? Neil.
Breakfast.
It is indeed. For £175. Who wrote The Tailor of Panama? Julie. You're out of time. It's John le Carré. For £175, which racecourse plays host to all 5 Irish classics? Neil.
Leopardstown.
No, it's the Curragh. £175 still. Of which country was Shakespeare's symbol in The King? Joe.
Britain.
Thank goodness you got a Shakespeare question right, Joe. For £200, according to Ogden Nash, candy is dandy, but liquor is... Kirsty.
Quicker.
Correct. £225, which substance gives plants their green colour? Andrew.
Chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll is correct. And that's the end of our quiz questions today. The lines are now closed. Here are your final cash totals. Julie, you have £175. Andrew, you have £450. Neil, you have £475. Kirsty, you have £525. Joe, you have £625, which means that Joe is today's winner. However, that might be the closest any of you get to that cash. It can still be stolen from you because the enemy is still within. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to nominate who you believe the enemy is, and you must give me a majority decision. If you give me a split decision, then it's the audience's vote that will be decisive, whether you agree with it or not. It's now time for that audience vote. So, audience, who is the enemy? At this stage, our audience's vote will only be seen by our viewers at home. You've now had a chance to think. What you must decide is whether it's somebody who's out in the front, winning, or somebody hiding behind everybody else. Could it be Joe, who's answered all of his questions right, or Kirsty, who's led you to believe she might be the enemy, or is it somebody else that's hidden? Andrew, who is the enemy?
I actually think it's Neil.
Julie, who is the enemy?
Joe.
Joe, who is the enemy?
I think it's Neil.
Kirsty, who is the enemy?
Neil.
Neil, who is the enemy?
Kirsty.
Well, Neil, Andrew, Joe and Kirsty all point the finger at you. But are they right? Will the real enemy stand up? They're not right. Well done, Joe. Congratulations. Please sit down. Was there ever a point there where you thought you'd given yourself away?
Yeah, when I gave the English question away a bit too obvious, and then I got the other Shakespeare question right. So
That's right. You didn't know the first Shakespeare, but you knew Cymbeline.
well,
No
that's
one
great.
picked up on that.
It's great acting.
Well, as I told everybody, you are an actor. They didn't take any account of that. I thought Kirsty played into your hands rather well.
Yeah, she a bit wavering, which is nice. Really.
Yeah. Well, Joe, you've done what you set out to do. You've outwitted your fellow contestants, and you're going to go home with what you justly deserve, which is their money, and that adds up to £2,250. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Andrew, you didn't spot him?
Nope.
You went for Kirsty?
Originally, yeah, because she just seemed to be storming ahead, and
Yeah. And then you changed over and thought it was Neil.
yes.
Why Neil?
I don't know, some of the answers, I just got the impression he seemed to be answering things wrong on purpose, almost.
You almost had £450.
Almost.
Julie, you spotted Joe.
I can spot a cheat, Nigel.
What led you to believe it was Joe?
I believe that he deliberately didn't answer questions that he should have known and tried to throw us off the scent with the fact that he was just a boy.
Certainly tried that. Kirsty, you didn't spot Joe. You thought it was Neil.
Yeah, I had an inkling on Neil because he wasn't really looking at anybody else. to try and suss anybody else out. And so I thought it was him.
Yeah. Why did you keep pulling attention to yourself?
I don't know. I didn't do it on purpose. I realised after a while I had been doing that.
Yeah.
And
I even
that was
pointed
a
it out.
mistake.
I even pointed it out to you, and you were still going, well, maybe that's a chance I'm going to take. You actually, Kirsty, had £525.
that would have been nice.
Well, you've had to hand it over to Joe. Neil, you had £475 had you have spotted Joe.
My first reaction, my first inclination when we sat down, was it Joe? But Kirsty, with all her games, pulled me away.
Yeah. All four of you now go home with what you justly deserve, which is absolutely nothing. How did you do at home? Do you think you'd be a good detective? Well, better than the four we have today? Or do you think you'd make a great enemy like Joe did? If you do, and you want to take part in the show, why not write to this address? The Enemy Within, Post Office Box 22122, London SE1 9GL. And please include a stamped self-addressed envelope. Well, that's all for now. Today's cheat Joe wasn't discovered by our contestants or the audience, who thought that it was Kirsty. But hopefully 5 of you out there did manage to identify him. See you next time, and remember, keep your friends close and your enemies even closer when you know who they are.